Thank you. I take these one wheels all over the world when I speak at events. People think it's a gimmick. They come to me like, what a gimmick, man. That's different. I go, no, it's really just actually a joy machine. And I'm just so much happier floating around on this board. So I figure if I'm happy, I'll be more fun with all of you. You'll be happy. We'll be happy together. I really appreciate CCSF. I love the diversity in this room. All of the different ages, the mix of genders, the mix of ethnicity. I know that many of you come from totally diverse backgrounds, and this is a place where everybody comes together at one time. It doesn't matter what it is that you do currently in your career or what things you've accomplished. You're all coming as students to learn something and to apply yourself with some of these new skills that Leo and the team teach you. I've gotten to know a lot of the faculty here the last 8 years or so. I just came from USF. I did a guest lecture for Vivian over at USF a moment ago, and I'm getting ready to go to the airport after this class. I'm flying to Istanbul, Turkey tonight, and I'll be there for about a week, and then I'll go to Latvia, meet with Parliament about future technology. I just came, the last couple weeks I was in London, and then Manila, and Singapore. And so it's been a wild month of travel for me. The 5 countries in 1 month is pretty unique. I don't love to travel. I actually would rather be home. I have 2 really cool places in Santa Cruz, California. So my boys and I have been living in this tree house. I built forts on this 150-year-old oak tree when I was their age. I have 2 sons, 10 and 14. And we built a tree house to Airbnb, and my boys took it over. And then I moved my office in the treehouse, and then we just never left the treehouse. So I live in a treehouse because of it, which is a really, really cool experience, especially being that I've been involved in future technology for 25 years. It's, come on in, welcome, with your Outbound t-shirt. I've been involved with future technology for so long that it's nice to kind of break away from the intensity of everything's all about tech and speed and movement, and I get to hang out with 100 species of birds and the deer and the turkey and the coyote and the skunk, and stay away from the skunk, and the bobcats and all the different animals that are my neighbors. We also have a cool place. Have you ever been to, many of you been to Santa Cruz? I'm assuming many of you have, yeah? You ever been to Capitola Village? Capitola Village is those really colorful buildings, the Venetian, and there's like a Margaritaville restaurant and Capitola Bar and Grill and Mr. Toots. So I live right there in that building. And I had built that building 22 years ago. So my father is a general contractor and a framing contractor. So we took hammers and nails, we threw wood together and built homes for people. That's what I grew up doing. I think it's how I learned how to work hard, right? My dad, I had no skills. So when I was a kid, he'd be like, all right, you dig a hole and let me know when you're done. And I'd come out, okay, I dug the hole. Okay, fill it up. Take that pile of wood, you move that over there. Okay, wood's moved, put it back. Just like anything just to keep me busy and like teach me diligence when I was a young man. And I really loved building. Like I found it incredibly edifying to be a part of a team that would build a home that families would live in, would share joys and sorrows together. The thought of being a part of such an intimate thing in a human's life was always fascinating to me. Not often did I get to work on a commercial building, but I did this one time in Capitola Village. And I remember, so I was born in 1981. I'm an elder millennial. And so, but back when I was just a young kid, I was 20 years old, and it was kind of toward the end of me working for my dad before I really kind of went full-time into technology stuff. I was working on this building, Margaritaville and all these commercial buildings. There's an apartment kind of in the midst of all of them. And I remember building it, and I was sitting on the porch where I live now. And my feet were hanging over the porch, and it's on the sand, on the water, looking at the wharf. And I thought to myself, I can't believe somebody gets to live here. This is so incredible. I want to live here. And I don't live there because I'm like crazy wealthy and I finally bought this place. It just happened to work its way out, and I ended up being able to move into this place at the beach. And so it's a unique experience living in a treehouse with animals as my neighbors, away from the busyness of life. When COVID happened, nothing changed in my world, except for I just would ride the one wheel and nobody was around. It was fantastic. I've done like 7,000 miles on these one wheels over the last 7 years. And so when the COVID went down, it would just meant that there was no cars to dodge while I went for my rides. But because I lived in the forest, it was very kind of separate. I've always worked remotely. I've had teams work with me remotely for 20 years. And but being in Capitola Village at the beach, right next to all the busyness, that's like the busiest part of Santa Cruz County. It's like impossible to find a parking spot there at my own home. And so that gives you a little context, right? I'm a dad first. I have 2 sons. I love where I live. I don't want to travel, but I'm traveling a lot from time to time. Usually when I'm traveling, it's to speak at business conferences. So I'll go to some sort of international business conference, and I'll be speaking about artificial intelligence, or I'll be speaking about blockchain. And the reason why I speak about those 2 topics is I started Future of Tech events inside Twitter's headquarters on Market and 10th, before it was X, back when Jack Dorsey was there. And I was the entrepreneur in residence. In fact, that's where we met. You came over, you and Vivian came over to Twitter's headquarters. We sat in the conference room and we dreamt about what could be the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And you guys were so kind as to invite me to be a part of that when you started it. And so when I was at the entrepreneur residence at this innovation hub inside of Twitter, I would do these events. And like, I'm pretty good at communicating, as you might find, especially as I start taking questions. You'd be like, there's a tough question, you won't know what to say. And I'll somehow find a way. So ask me tough questions, I dare you. And I would be there and I thought, I don't really know what's going on, but I definitely have a sense that AI, because I'm using Amazon Alexa at this time, I'm using Apple Siri at this time, I'm looking at what OpenAI is talking about when they were still a nonprofit organization, Elon Musk gave them $1 billion, and I'm thinking about, okay, there's something really to voice as an interface, because we can't be limited to fingers on a keyboard and thumbs on glass. We can't be limited to just like this physical engagement. We're going to have to be able to talk to devices in our own language, have it respond to us in the language that we understand, and we're going to have to get to some new interface. And I'm watching Iron Man like you. Right? I'm like, I want Jarvis, right? So I don't get it. I don't know how this works. What is machine learning? How does this all this make sense? So I figured, well, if I just invite people to come hang out with me, Twitter's a cool place to come hang out. If you're like, yeah, I want to come to Twitter. So it's like easy to get people to come speak. And then I would just gather people up and we would do these events. And the AI events turned into me just kind of joining my friends that run Voice and AI and Project Voice and the AI content that we run at CES in Las Vegas in January. I also ran all these blockchain events. And I was fascinated by distributed ledger technology. The thought that we had gone from, wood. If you know how governments used to have ledgers, the way governments had ledgers back in the day is they took a knife and they carved wood, right? And if you're familiar with Parliament in the House of Lords, the House of Commons in the UK, Parliament burnt down because they transitioned from wooden tablets with everybody's debt that they owed the government to paper with ink. And when they went to burn all the wooden tablets, the first ledger, they got a little aggressive and the fire took over and burnt almost the entire Parliament down. And I was just there inside Parliament with the lords and the ladies this month, and we were talking about how funny that is, the example of the first ledger. We go to paper, and then a monk was the first person to ever suggest that contracts, there should be 2 copies. This monk said, why is it that the powerful person in the contract is always one with a copy of the contract? Why is it always the institution, not the person? Why is it always the wealthy person and not the poor person? Why is it always the boss and not the employee? What is it that we haven't, as humanity, demanded that both parties get a copy? And so that was a monk's idea, which transformed accountability. Then we went from paper and having 2 copies, eventually went to like computers. In our homes, in our offices, these big, loud, hot computers, and those were our ledgers. Now we could store all kinds of stuff on them, right? And any of you that are my age or older, you remember like floppy disks, right? I mean, it was like revolutionary. We could put like 10 documents on the first floppy disk. Like, I can fit 10 pieces of paper on this thing. And then we went to having computers in the cloud. That's where we're kind of at today, right? But the problem is, with the ledger today, it's controlled by just a few number of companies. Microsoft with Azure and Google with Google Cloud Services, and Amazon with AWS, they are controlling all of our ledgers. And if for any reason they decide they don't like what you're doing, what you're about, then they could easily shut you off. And if you happen to be aligned with the group that's doing the shutting offing, and you're like, good, go get them, that's hate speech. Well, it's amazing how things change. So today, certain groups of people are being shut down, but what happens tomorrow? What happens when those people are in charge and it's your group that's being shut down, which is the joy of pursuing freedom for people to have, as long as you're not breaking laws and truly doing something that is nefarious. So the problem with ledgers today is that clearly these trillion-dollar centralized companies don't necessarily have your best interest in mind. They don't have our company's best, they don't have the school's best interest in mind. I mean, they might want to. I mean, Google's whole slogan when it got started was do no evil. I think that's a pretty cool thing to pursue. I think maybe if they asked themselves, how do we do what's righteous, that might have been better. But do no evil is a good start, right? And so the problem with this is these huge companies are in control of everything. And I started to hear about Bitcoin. I started to hear about Ethereum. I started to hear about this distributed ledgers where all the people are making technology for themselves and they're all basically participating in providing parts of this distributed ledger that can never be stopped. So you see what happened with WikiLeaks. That was all based on distributed ledgers, right? Nobody could turn WikiLeaks off, right? It's unstoppable. It's an unstoppable force because of how people are hosting the content. So I didn't understand this stuff, and I figured, well, I'll just invite people over to Twitter. We'll do events, and I'll ask questions, and I'll eventually learn what blockchain is. And that's basically turned into a bunch of events. So you may have heard of an event called NFT NYC. So I helped launch that, and we had 16,000 people at that event last year in Times Square, and I'm a part of a bunch of other, kind of blockchain events. So that gives you a little context for like what I spend a lot of time doing. I build companies. Leo mentioned I've co-founded 8 companies. I've never founded anything on my own. Never was bold or courageous enough to try to do something solo. That sounded like a terrible plan. That sounded like a disaster waiting to happen. I'm very familiar with my weaknesses. Being an all-in-one Lone Ranger was not a strength of mine. I lean heavily on other people. I am totally dependent on other people to be brilliant at what they're great at and to create interdependency. And so I have always kind of started things with groups of people. Now, fortunately, over time, I've been able to do that with the same group of people over and over again. So I have a couple guys that have been with me for 16 years, one for 13 years, one for 10 years, and then many for several years. And so we just kind of start one thing after another together, and we have these big, grand visions. Every single time, it's harder. Like the new company that I started 6 years ago, it's so much harder than the last 7 all combined. I just keep wondering, why did I choose to try to do this product? This is the worst. It's so hard. Every time I finish and I go to market, it breaks. People don't know what it is. They don't get it. We invented 3 things. Why couldn't I just invent one thing? Like, why not just one invention would be fine? No, I had to do 3 inventions, 3 things that nobody understands how to use. Now, fortunately, over time, people have caught up. And you kind of see that with the adoption of blockchain and AI. So that's my introduction. I could have had a presentation. I could have done all sorts of things with my time with you today, but I thought I would just kind of introduce myself for a moment and take some questions and interact with all of you. I used to come here with this soft Frisbee that I got at Google. It was like made out of, I don't know, crochet. And if people wouldn't ask me questions, I'd just start throwing the Frisbee at people. So I don't have anything to throw at you, but maybe I crumple up some paper and throw a paper ball at somebody. So be courageous. Yes, ask me a question. What's your name?
Noni.
Hi, Noni. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So when you were starting your companies in the very beginning,
Yeah.
how did you figure out or realize who would be the best people to partner with?
The people that wanted to help me for free were the best people to partner with. The people that thought it was worth volunteering for a while to see what would happen. Those were clearly the winners. Now, those people, the caliber of people that are willing to volunteer with me to start things have gone up over time because I've become better at communicating with them. And the success that we've had is also attractive. So people are like, well, it's been successful before. Maybe they'll be successful again. So I have not raised money, which is unusual for somebody that's lived in the Silicon Valley my whole life. Actually, my family's lived here for 250 years. I'll end talking about my heritage here in San Francisco at the end of our time together. So what I would do is I would not raise money. I would not borrow money. I would not go into debt. I would just basically have friends and I'd start running this idea by them. Hey, I got a guy that's an artist, and this dude has like $100 million of art at his house. How about we get our friends and we go sell some art together, make some money? And nobody liked that idea, so I didn't do it. It's like nobody wanted to volunteer to learn how to become art salesmen. I'm like, okay, fine. So then I had an idea for a band. We were going to do a band. And I said to my friends, okay, I got this idea. Let's all quit our jobs and sell our cars and move into my house. I'm going to get a new house. And let's live together and let's travel around the world and do music. It's going to be rad. And let's give the music away for free. Huh? What do you think? We're going to go on mission together. And so I had 30 people live with me. It was amazing. I couldn't believe people wanted to be a part of a commune. I was 20-something, and I just thought, this seems like a fun thing to do. And so 30 people lived in my house, and we went around the world, did 200 concerts through Asia, Europe, and the States. We wrote a bunch of music that has been used wildly by nonprofit organizations. So the most well-known song for human trafficking in all of history is a song that we wrote called Beautiful Slave. And I would contact all the nonprofit organizations. So I would contact Not for Sale, Free the Slaves, International Justice Mission, World Vision, Compassion International. I'm like, we wrote an anthem song for you. And I go, what? Like, we don't even care if you tell anybody who we are. We just want you to use the song. So I say, use it for advocacy, for fundraising. Don't tell anybody who we are. We called our band Take No Glory. We want to be we tried anonymous, but there's too many, like Alcohol Anonymous and Narcotic Anonymous. It's too hard to compete. Take no glory, nobody ever thought of that phrase. So we were Take No Glory, and I would go to my friends and be like, hey, I got this idea. How about let's call ourselves musicianaries. Let's go do good in the world with music. And so that's basically what we tried to do. So that would be an example of like a super fun, crazy idea that we did in 2008 when the total financial meltdown happened. It was like the worst time ever to decide to start a nonprofit organization, but it was fun. We had a blast. We made lots of music, and it was a cool experience. So each time, I had a company that was acquired by a private equity firm called Kukui, KUKUI.com. So that was supposed to be a real estate company. We owned urealty.com, and we were supposed to compete with Zillow and Trulia and Redfin. And we thought our technology was better, which is how every founder thinks. Everything we build is better than everybody else. It's for sure. We're definitely right about that. We always build the better thing. And whether that was true or not, Zillow and Trulia, they had a ton of money. They had raised tens of millions of dollars, so they were crushing us. We could not get the world's attention. So we decided to abandon real estate and to take our technology and to start a auto repair software company. And at that point, it was just me and my friend, the CEO, and I was the president. And he was the brilliant technical guy, and I was the loud talky guy, right? So, okay, you build it, and I'll tell the world about it. And so I would like take an iPad with like a 10-page slide, and I just basically go tell people, we built the most important thing for your industry, right? And I'd study a little bit. I'm like, do you use these different softwares? And they go, yeah. I'm like, how do you like those softwares? I hate them. I hate the softwares. Me too. I hate them too. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to build one software, and all that stuff's going to be in that one thing. And I'm like, nah, you're full of it. I'm like, no, trust me. And I would do the Indiana Jones thing. Trust me. And some people trusted us. So we would charge like $2,500 a month when we started that company, but our expenses were pretty high. So our first like 5 or 6 employees all volunteered. And then once we could afford it, we would pay just the like 4th, 5th, 6th employee minimum wage. And then we told them that if we're ever successful one day, you'll have equity in this company. And then eventually, like everybody was making minimum wage. And then eventually we kind of paid ourselves like half of what we were worth, right? So ultimately, we ended up getting people to basically volunteer. I volunteered for like a year and a half. It was a total bummer. Just destroyed me financially. But the end result is, after 7, 8 years, we scaled to thousands of customers. We reduced our price from $2,500 a month down to a few $100s a month. Private equity firm really liked what we built. We had scaled to over $10 million of annualized revenue. So we were doing about $1 million a month in revenue on these ongoing contracts with auto repair shops. And that made us a successful company, and so we were acquired. And so all those people that believed me when I said, like, let's do this thing together. That happened to be a time where we did the death march together and we made it to the life camp. But most startups are a death march until you throw in the towel and give up and you never make it to the life camp. It's very hard to actually make it to the promised land, whatever that is, whether that's a salary that allows you to thrive financially or whether that is an exit where you can sell your equity or whatever your fantasy is of starting something, or whatever the fantasy is that the founder tells you or that you tell the people, it's very rare to ever make it there. So, ideally, you at least find great joy and pleasure and purpose in the journey of the trying. The trying is my favorite part. Other questions? Yes, what's your name?
Amanda.
I love your hat, Amanda.
And I love your shirt.
Oh, right on.
Good phrase. But what would you say your greatest failure was, and how did you bounce back?
Well, my greatest failure throughout my career was always exaggerating. So part of that, I could make excuses for myself, right? So I could give you a long list of excuses of why I was prone to exaggeration. My personality's this way, or this is the way I was trained, whatever it is, you know. But I really, really, really took some unfortunate consequences from telling people about the present, but like it was the future. You know, like, our product does this, 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 and that, but it didn't do this, this, and this, and that. It kind of did this, and maybe one day it would do this, and probably never do this, and that's very unlikely. And so I would kind of like tell the world about the stuff and the things. It just so happened to be that the stuff and the things weren't actually complete yet. And all I had to do was just tell them, hey, we have a vision to do all these things and all this stuff. We really want to get there. And right now, if you become our client, the product that does the stuff and the things, that doesn't exist. We're going to make it for you. But what we can do is we can give you services. We can use our time and our energy, our intellect to serve you to create the same end result that the product's supposed to do. And if I just would have set expectations throughout my career, then so many times where I had great clients that we built trust, that I enjoyed serving them, that they liked the vision, so many times where they eventually hit a limit with us because Ian said this, or Ian implied that, and it wasn't accurate. I was living in the future. So that's always been my greatest failure, is not recognizing the need to think before I speak. When it comes to recruiting people, same thing. Since the majority of things that I have started have come to an end and not been acquired, and sometimes it's mostly a peaceful end. I've never had like a flaming, burnout, brutal end. It's always been kind of like I slowly bring death upon the company. I have to be very careful what I say to people, right? Like equity doesn't mean anything unless it does. And when it does, usually everybody that said yes in the beginning already left because it was just too long of a process. So that's another example of failure, right? I will say things to people, especially early on, and I will like get their hopes up and I'll get them all pumped up. So one thing to think about for people with my personality is if you talk somebody into something, whether a client to buy your product or service, an investor to believe in you, a financial company or institution or person to give you debt and a credit, whether you talk somebody into joining your team to volunteer or to work for minimum wage when they're worth a lot more than that, whether you're talking, whatever it is that you're persuading somebody to do, if you persuade them, you will have to keep persuading them over and over and over again. And in the act of continual persuasion to get somebody to do what you want for their life, I love you and I have a will for your life, that whole thing. If you do that to people, you will get exhausted. You're eventually going to give up. It's too much to bear the weight of having to constantly talk people into doing something over and over again, and they will not like you. They will not like that you talked them into it the first time, and they won't like that you keep doing it over and over again, and they will have very negative feelings about you. So again, that's another point of failure. The act of persuasion, which can be very healthy, right? Persuasion can be very healthy. You can persuade people to do what's in their best interest. But you can also persuade people to do what's in your best interest, which is where you really get into a tough situation. And that comes with any type of person that works for you or that you're trying to sell. Yep, what's your name?
Zach.
Hey, Zach, nice to meet you.
If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, laugh more, chill out, take it easy, be present. Happy heart, be healthy. Eat healthy food, sleep more, exercise. Don't tweak, don't trip out. Nothing really matters. Everything is going to work out just the way it's supposed to for the most part. It would all be philosophy. It would all be psychology. It would all be mental health stuff. I would never go back to my younger self and tell myself some sort of trick, because everything about success in business is about, not everything, but so much of success in business really comes down to the foundational things that you see in athletes. It's amazing how we celebrate athletes for two reasons. One, that we celebrate somebody in their career. That's a super strange thing to do. Nobody is celebrating Jesse, who runs the college here. When Jesse walks in, Jesse, we love what you're doing at the school, man! That doesn't happen. But we do that for basketball players and football players and baseball players. It's strange that we celebrate people in that way. Another thing that's strange is that we don't recognize what it actually took for them to become so incredibly great. It did not take some sort of special God-given skill most of the time. Yes, there are a few Bo Jacksons that have lived. Yeah, no doubt. There's some people that have a massive advantage over others. But the majority of the great people in sport is because they show up to practice earlier, they practice harder, they do more sacrifice, they eat healthier, they sleep better, they have better mentors, they have better coaches, they have better trainers, they're more humble, they submit to the system, they practice longer, they show up, they don't think too highly of their highs, and they don't let themselves fall down and get drug addicted and turn to a bunch of things to medicate themselves in their lows. And so we watch athletes constantly and celebrate them. And if we just applied diligence, hard work, ethics, humility, consistency to our life, then everything we do, whether school or work or entrepreneurship, would benefit from it. So, yeah, but I don't really have some sort of special thing I learned after 25 years building business that this is the key, dude. This is it. I feel pretty good about the decisions I made up to this point. I did the best I could in light of my circumstances, except for exaggerating. I don't feel good about that. Any other questions? Yeah, what's your name?
Angelia,
Hi, Angelia.
you mentioned you haven't received any funding. So how did you receive funding to fund your business?
Sold services, then sold a product every time. So I've never been a broker. So I've never sold somebody else's services and took a profit, or sold somebody else's product and took a profit. I've always started off by selling a service. So I will do your marketing for you. My team will do your SEO for you. We will help you generate sales. We will do your design. We'll make you a website. We will make you a CRM. We will help you understand blockchain. We will create a conference, an event. You come, give us money for the ticket. We're coming with some way for you to get value from us so you'll give us money. And then I've worked on a product that helps me to scale a solution. So instead of our team having to do services, like we'll do services for X per hour, or we'll deliver this end result for this much money. So instead of that, services, we eventually work toward getting a product, and then we say, okay, for X per month, or for X per year, or for a one-time payment of this, you can have this product that does what our service used to do without having to work with us at all. So that's how I funded the companies. I've been a part of a lot of companies that have raised money, hundreds of thousands or tens of millions of dollars. And it always seemed a little strange to me. I've tried a few times. I've always failed. I'm like truly more of an artist than I am a businessman. So everything I've ever co-founded, like to me, is like this romantic art. it's like I'm so caught up in the emotion of this incredible piece of software that we're building. Like I'm convinced it's going to change the world, transform humanity, pull 3 billion people out of poverty that get the internet soon and make $2 a day. And like, this is it. We solved the human problem. And so I'm like an artist in that way. And so everything I do just feels so important to me. And so the thought of like telling somebody, if you give me $100,000, you can expect I'm either going to fail or I'm going to come back with $300,000 or $700,000 or $2.5 million. Like that is a weird conversation for me because I'm working for free. I got a bunch of my friends to volunteer. Why would I talk to some wealthy person and give them the implied promise of 3, 7, 25x? Now, in the case of my newest company, I see the value in raising money. In the case of other companies I've worked with, I certainly see the importance of raising money. It's not that it's out of the question, but I waited, right? I spent 20 plus years of figuring out how to sell services, how to build products and sell products before I started to do more than just play on the edges of fundraising. It's a lost art, just charging for products and services. Yes, what's your name?
Devadita,
Nice to meet you.
you too. So what if you had a problem and a product for that problem and it needed funding? What do you do then?
Then you go get funding. So I've never needed funding, I don't think. But I'll give you an example. So products. So this company is One Wheel, started by a guy named Kyle in Santa Cruz, where I live. And Kyle raised like $3.5 million. Now, Kyle had some money, but he wanted to mitigate the risk of all the weight on his shoulders. And so he raised a few $1,000,000, and this never raised money again. But he needed the money so he could finish the prototype, he could bring it to market. Now, as far as I understand, he's selling like 25,000 One Wheels a month at $1,000 to $2,000 a pop. So it's most likely a multi-billion-dollar mobility company at this point. And they're collecting massive amounts of data, and the riders have done over 100 million miles on the boards. I've done 7,000 of the miles myself. And Kyle had to, in his mind, he chose that I need to raise money so that I'm not paying for all the R&D and the product development and the market development and finding the customer and going to market. I want some other people to join me in that risk. And then for them, I'm assuming that it's been a wildly successful venture for his investors. So that's an example. I brought the competitive product to market called the GeoBlade. And so my friend Robert Bigler was the inventor of the GeoBlade. We did not know about Kyle and the One Wheel. Kyle did not know about us. We owned hoverboard.com. We owned the trademark for hoverboard, and we launched on October 21st, 2015, the same day that's in Back to the Future 2. And our product was $10,000. Kyle's was $1,500. Our product had a wheel that was like 1/4 the size. So ours was very, very, very dangerous. Ours was much more powerful. It went way faster. Ours had 2 removable batteries and lights all around it and 4 speakers. So we were convinced it's way better. But the reality is our product was too dangerous and too expensive. And so rather than adjusting the sales and competing with Kyle, the inventor, he was already wildly wealthy. He never needed to worry about money, or his great-great-grandkids will never have to worry about money as long as they make somewhat wise decisions. And so he just said, I'm done. He got hurt. His son got hurt. I didn't get hurt, but man, did I fall bad a few times. I just rolled with it, unfortunately. It was a dangerous product. So That's an example where Robert is so wealthy he doesn't have to raise money. He can invest his own $5 or $10 million, making the hoverboard, taking it to market for $10,000 a pop, and failing, and no big deal. He built the fantasy product he wanted to build. Where Kyle, regardless of how much money he had when he used to run IDO, he chose to go raise a few $1,000,000. And I don't know Kyle personally. It's not like I'm telling Kyle's personal story. It's all kind of public knowledge. And to build the first prototype for One Wheel, and that money allowed him to go to market. Now they're on like their 6th or 7th version of the board. So that would be an example where if you have a physical product, unless you are super wealthy and refuse to give any benefit to others to participate in the development of your company. Now, what have I done? Even though I haven't raised money, I've made promises of equity to the team members, which is kind of like raising money. So let's say a team member might be worth $50,000 a year or $350,000 a year, right? And you're bringing somebody on that's kind of like an entry-level person, or you're asking somebody to be your co-founder and president to run your finance and your legal. And you say to them, I will give you X%, or I will give you X amount of equity in the future. And so that is raising money. So I have done that quite a bit, because I'm always saying to people like, hey, if you join me, I can't pay you what you're worth. Maybe I can't pay you at all. I'm not paying myself either. So, we're in this together. We're suffering together. But at least I can make a commitment of a benefit for you later on. So hopefully that gives you a few perspectives of getting value from people or using your own value as the resource. Yeah, what's your name?
Stephen,
Hi, Stephen.
in the case of like raising money, not the way you do, the way you don't do it, if people take that risk, is it like a loan where if your company doesn't become successful, do you have to pay them back, or they accept that risk?
Yeah, you don't want to do that. You never want to do personal loans. That usually only happens to entrepreneurs when they go back to their investors like a second and fourth time. And the investors go, no. I'm not loaning money. I'm not investing in your company. I've already been there. You screwed up. You didn't make it happen. This is on you. So I'd rather just cut my losses and be done with it. You fail. I'm done. And no, please. Come on. Don't give up on us. I'll do anything. Okay, then you're personally liable. Okay. I don't care. I'll be liable. I'm not going to quit. And that's how people basically, they take a personal loan, but most of investment agreements are done with a thing called a SAFE agreement. And a SAFE agreement means SAFE is, my board's going to die. How sad, I'm going to have to stand. It's so rare to stand nowadays. These boards don't last very long. So the SAFE agreement is a simple agreement for future equity. And so what that is a chance for you not to take debt, like a convertible note. All you're saying is if you give me $10,000, $100,000, $1 million, then I will give you that much equity when I have equity for our company, because we're just getting started. There's lots of ways to do the SAFE agreement. It was created by Y Combinator. I think that's a pretty good thing. The safest and wisest thing to do is called a C+ regulation crowdfund. So Dealmaker is a trusted company to do this with. Start Engine, WeFunder. So basically there's all these companies that they will build you a fund mechanism. You can raise up to $5 million per year. Now you're not dependent on accredited investors. Now you can raise money from non-accredited investors and raise $100 or $1,000 from anybody, where the majority of fundraising in startups is only accredited investors that I think they have to have $1 million and or make $250,000 a year. I don't know exactly what the metrics are today, but that's the traditional metric, is you raise money from accredited investors that have money to lose, and it's no debt. And only the entrepreneur gets themselves in trouble when they go back to those accredited investors and keep asking for more money because they didn't do what they said they were going to do in the time they said they were going to do it. Other questions? What's your name?
Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
How do you find interesting problems to solve?
Well, that's a good question. How do you find interesting problems to solve? I just try to think about my problems. Yeah, how do I solve my problems? So with the real estate company, U Realty, I was unhappy with my experience with Zillow and Trulia and Redfin. So we built what we thought was a better solution to find property. So we built what we wanted. My mom is a real estate agent, and so I was very aware of the problems for agents and for brokers. And so I also saw the problem that she faced, and so I made her problem personal to me. Like, this is the problem that real estate agents are facing, so I'm going to solve that problem too. I'm going to solve the problem for the consumer and the agent broker. We then switched to auto repair. So then I thought to myself, okay, I don't have good experiences when I need an oil change, when I need engine work, when I need tires. I usually just pull up on a place that's a garage. I don't know if they have ethics. I don't know what they're like, and I have all these questions about it. And so that was a problem that I made personal. And I had a lot of friends that had auto repair shops, and they seemed to all be struggling that the Yellow Pages no longer brought business in. Because at one point, it was like the Yellow Pages, their phrase was, if you're not in the book, you don't exist. And they were the only way small businesses got action. Like, if you were a restaurant or an attorney or an auto repair shop, you either had an ad in that Yellow Page book or you don't exist. And I remember my friend, he was with a Yellow Page advertiser and the guy's being rude to him. he grabs the ad and he just rips it out of the book. He goes, fine, you're out. And the guy goes, no, I want to exist. So for auto repair shops, I knew that the Yellow Pages didn't work anymore. Yelp was just a place for people to put lots of bad reviews and critical reviews, especially about auto repair shops. And I didn't like my experience with auto repair shops. So we went to build this company, Kukui, where I could basically fulfill this problem that I saw where they used to be able to be busy just by having a full page ad, but that didn't work anymore. So now they needed better software to run operations, finance, and marketing. And for me, as a person with cars, I wanted to have a good experience where I could have pictures taken of what's going on, where I could have verification of what's going on, why they're charging me what they're charging me. So all those things are kind of baked into our product. So a lot of times it's just like personal. My company, Attention Live, we built a content creation tool so that we can distribute content on every social media site like YouTube while we mint tokens against that content to prove ownership and automate the ability to make money from it through tokenization. And so that's what I need. I have 29 terabytes of my videos and photos and time lapses on Google Photos right now. 29 terabytes with a T. And I have 25,000 minutes of my stuff like this. I don't know if anybody's, but my great-great-great-grandkids in the future, you watching this? I love you. So I don't even know why I record myself. Nobody ever asked to watch, but I transcribe the things that I record because I figured one day AI was going to be smart enough to ingest all my content so I could ask myself what I think about things. So I have this amount of content I've been collecting, 29 terabytes of content, plus 55 terabytes on my hard drives from back in the day. And I'm just like a crazy content creating machine, except I never have time or desire to share it with anybody, so it's all just private. And I transcribe all this content, and so I need a tool that I could put all of my content into, Attention Live, distribute my content everywhere at one time with no effort or work where people are already at, and then tokenize that content so that I can prove I own it and I can monetize it. And so a lot of the content I've captured the last 6 years, I've been waiting for our product to be ready. Or another product, Hedera. I didn't start Hedera, but I'm an executive at Hedera, Hashgraph LLC, and Hedera's 5 companies. There's also Swirlds Labs with the founders, and they maintain our tech and improve it, and they do the marketing. And then we have 3 foundations where we give money away to governments and enterprises and startups to build technology with our system. Well, Hedera solves a massive problem, and that is a trustworthy distributed ledger that enterprises and governments could build on. So we can move passports and titles for houses and pink slips for cars, memberships for clubs and receipts for restaurants and hotels over to this distributed ledger network so that we can have a trustless, permissionless network of data that can't just be erased or removed at any time. So these are things where you find a big problem and you create something to solve that problem, or you see a company like Hedera that is solving a problem that you're really passionate about, and you say, oh, I want to be a part of that team. So Yeah, what's your name?
Alex,
Hi, Alex.
how did you gain confidence and skill in your ability to communicate and present?
It's a good question. I used to get vertigo when I spoke in public, and I cried. Oh, God, I would cry. It was so embarrassing. I can't believe I'd cry like that. It's weird because it's so long ago. As soon as there was like more than 3 or 4 people, I don't know what it was, I would get all emotional whenever I talk, and I'd start weeping, and and I can't talk, and tears are rolling down my eyes, and the world would go sideways, and I'm like, I should not talk. I should be a one-on-one guy, and that's it. Practice and just willing to go through the brutality of the embarrassment of weeping like a little, just a helpless little child. I guess I'm so more. I gotta tell you this. It was so weird. I couldn't stop myself. I was just overwhelmed with emotion. So something that helped me was slowing down. Taking pauses, taking my time, not having to rush to say every single thing, being okay with just saying the thing or things that seemed to be most important in that time. And the other thing was I studied the world's best speakers consistently. So when I was a teenager and into my early 20s, and I never really spoke publicly until I was in my late 20s. So I spent a decade, and I would listen to 6 to 10 one-hour talks a day. So I would be in my car. I didn't listen to music. I didn't make phone calls. I just listened to public speakers, self-help speakers, business speakers. There weren't podcasts back then. I can't believe it. I spent like $15 on cassette tapes, $20 on CDs. It's so crazy to think about. God, it was so much harder back then. And they weren't even good either. And now I can listen to the best people in the world for free. It's crazy. So I would just listen to people. And I listen over and over and over again. I get things down. Okay, take your time when you speak. Choose your moments when you get loud. Tell stories. Be lighthearted. Be self-deprecating. Don't take yourself too seriously. Right? You kind of learn these different tricks of what it takes to capture an audience's attention. Do you know how difficult it is for a human in the developed world to get people's attention and not have them looking at the cell phones? I'm so grateful that you're not all looking at your cell phones right now. And when some of you do look at your cell phones, I'm like, I totally get it. I get bored of myself too. So it's practice and it was determination. I had things to say. I had and still have things to say. And if I want to be heard, then I better be good at talking. And if it's hard, then I can either quit or I can practice. And if practice isn't enough, then I can study other people. And so that's how I specifically became more effective in communicating than I was when I first got started. Yeah. Hi, what's your name?
Janet.
Hi, Janet.
Hi. You're obviously a great pitch guy. Have you ever pitched a service or a product on Shark Tank?
No, I got accepted on Shark Tank. We got accepted for a product called Hand Snap. So you ever seen a pop socket? Pop sockets go on the back of cell phones. It's this little thing right here. It's this little circular thing you put your hands in. So 2014, my buddy was at a metal show, and he was crowd surfing. He thought to himself, man, I want to film this right now, but I can't bring my phone out. I'm going to drop my phone. I'm never going to find it again. And he had this idea. I need to attach my phone to my hand. So he puts this prototype together. It was like a glove, and he cut the glove up, and he threw like a socket on there, and basically attached the cell phone to his hand. And so he comes over and he shows it to me, right? And I just flip out. I'm like, this is it, man. This is the future. Everybody's going to attach their phone to the hand. I'm convinced this is it. I just know this is the future. And so I would walk around. It was so funny. I'd walk around with a phone on my hand, and I was just convinced I'm living the future, everybody. And our product cost $50, and we were successful with Kickstarter. We sold a bunch of the products. It cost us $30 to make. It's called Hand Snap. and we used Macho Man Randy Savage as our kind of pitch guy. You know, something snapping to a hand snap or whatever it was from Slim Jim. And we had a blast. We had a fun time. And we sold some products and they worked great. And I was convinced this is the future. And then Pop Socket came out. Pop Socket costs 18 cents to make. They sell them for 10 bucks. So guess who's going to win that war? Us, who make a complicated product that is like a glove that you can't really take off, that costs $50, and our margin's only 30 to 50, so if something bad happens, we start losing money, or the company that figured out how to make these things for less than $1 and sell them for 10. So what we did with that company is we ended up recruiting the president of PopSocket to come and be our partner, and we figured out what product can we make that complements PopSocket because our product will never compete with it. And he made something called a snap clip, thesnapclip.com, and it's one button that controls your phone. You talk to your phone, you take pictures, you do things with it. You can do combinations and all that. And we have those in every Best Buy. We sold tens of thousands of them. Now, when Shark Tank approved to have us come on for HandSnap, before we went on the show, we realized that our company was already a failure. So we chose not to go. But yeah, very close, very close. And then the Shark Tank of the Philippines called The Final Pitch. They asked me to be a judge. So I'm thinking about it because that might be kind of fun. I saw another hand somewhere. What's your name?
Oksana,
Okay, nice to meet you.
what motivates you to come here today?
Come here. Leo, I just do whatever he says. He says, you come here today. I say, yes, yes, sir.
I told you guys to go listen to me. We talked about value. Is that cool? We talked about value today, so thank you.
I do. I value you, Leo.
I didn't want to.
I know. I do value you. I really appreciate CCSF. I have a tremendous amount of honor for this higher education institution, and I don't for most. Most higher education institutions I have a pretty negative view of. So reasons why I really like this school is the diversity and the affordability. I mean, many of students are here without having to pay anything. I like the fact that there are value-added classes that are not just for 18 to 22-year-olds. I like that they're training people to do tangible things. I feel like I'm a part of it because I helped Leo and the rest of the team launch CEI. So I've always committed to being here. I come and I do at least one guest lecture a year, and then I help coordinate or whatever it's called, MC the kind of big end of the semester thing. I enjoy speaking at USF for Vivian over there. I speak at another university in Albuquerque. I do guest lecturing there. I think I have always preferred speaking at like university classes like this over most environments. So I also love, I like environments that are this size and where I can take questions. I like that there's not lights and sound and band and all that stuff. I like that there's not like a distraction. It's not a big show. I mean, the big show is fun. Like a person like myself that's achieved the level of success I've achieved and has become as good and effective at communicating as I have and has like some influence online, like I can feel like a rock star when I go to these events, which is kind of weird, right? But it still is real. It's like still tangible. I roll out on my one wheel and there's the lights and the band and the fog machine and I'm out there and I'm on a stage and I'm lifted up and I'm doing my thing and like that's pretty cool. But I do really appreciate this environment as much as any other environment. So one moment, because you raise your hand first and I'll come right back to you. Go ahead. What is my purpose? Well, to be a good dad, to be a good son, to be a good lover with whoever I'm with. To treat people well. So those are pretty general, but that would definitely be my driving purpose. If you go on my social media sites, the first thing you see is father. So I'm all about being a dad. Like it's my favorite thing. It's the thing I'm best at by far. I'm so much better at being a dad than anything else, and I still kind of suck at it. But purpose in terms of like how would I answer that question? I think I'm supposed to build products for billions of people. Like I'm really convinced about that. One reason I'm convinced about that is because my peers don't ever talk about it. My peers don't talk about the 3 billion people in the world that don't have the internet. They do not talk about the 3 billion people in the world that make less than $2 a day. They don't even talk about the 2/3 of the world that are totally impoverished, the 5-6 billion people that don't have all the advantages that we have in the developed nations. They don't think about them. They don't talk about them. They're not on their mind. Usually it's like charities and nonprofits that are thinking about them. But that is unfortunately a lot of times tied to getting grants and getting donations so they can self-perpetuate the reason for their existence because they're doing good in the world. And so I am absolutely convinced that if I am graced with a longer life, that I will continue to build products that will impact humanity in a positive way. So that would be like a very specific purpose that I am, no matter how many hardships or hurdles I face, no matter how many things are just so brutal, I won't quit because I think I can do something that nobody else is willing to do. So that's that. Another thing that I'll say about purpose is a lot of times I won't do anything that I think somebody else can do. So for instance, there might be a lot of people that could come here and talk to you today that would do better, that would be funnier or more educational or put you in a better position or be more memorable or whatever. I don't know. But I promise you, nobody's going to come here and say what I'm going to say. So when I come here today, I know there's not another human out of 8 billion people that are going to come here and are going to give you what I'm going to give you. That's why I'm here. Because when I come here, I know I'm not filling in a gap for Leo. I'm not like the first option out of 5 people like me. I'm not the 4th option out of 5 people like me because the first 3 said no. I'm the only option to have me here. And I'm just grateful that I get the chance. So that's also tied to purpose, right? So there's like the general purpose of like being a great human and being, if I die today, I'm glad at the life I lived. There's the purpose of like what my career's about, what I spend my time on and why I spend my time on it, why I don't give up. And then there's just like the purpose thing of like, if I only do what I believe that only I can do, then I'll have a bit more like drive and determination not to give up, because then all of my actions are tied to something that if I don't do it, it just doesn't get done, which is fine. The things I do don't need to be done. I'm not actually that important. But if I'm going to spend my time on stuff, I'd rather spend my time on stuff doing things that I feel like are uniquely mine to do. Go ahead.
Okay. What school did you go to? What did you major, and how did that influence your entrepreneurship skills?
Hey, great question. So I didn't go to school. I tried to go to community college. I think I tried like 5 semesters, and I almost got a year done. I am so not made for school. I would sit in classes, listen to brilliant people like Leo. Gotta go do something right now. Gosh, this is so boring. I cannot sit in this seat any longer. Usually I would like stick out a class if I was like with a girl that was in a class, kind of be like, I'm going to class today. But otherwise, if I wasn't with nobody, it was like, man, it's hard to go to class. But what I have done is more diligent education than most people I know. So I mentioned listening to 6, 8, 10 talks a day. I did that for a decade. I used to read a book a week. I have gone through 2 alternative master programs that are not certified twice. Now at this point, I've probably taught 1,000 times. And every time you teach, you're basically reinforcing knowledge that you've learned. I've been running all these different events. So every time I run an event, like I've done, if you type in my name online, you'll see I have over 1,000 one-on-one interviews online with the founders of Amazon and Apple and Siri and Bixby, with the founders of this blockchain and that blockchain and this media company and that media company, with these politicians. And so I'm insanely curious. So see, I recognized that USF and CCSF and other educational institutions, that in my immaturity of my late teens and early 20s, I was not prepared to be diligent and sit and be quiet and give myself to the process of learning at that time. I probably could do it today, maybe one day I will, but what I could do is I could play education material in my car while I drove. And I could sit down and read books instead of watch TV. And I could interview people that are smart and ask them lots and lots and lots of questions and learn from them that way. So I just built an alternate education path. I'll be right with you. Go ahead.
What programs did you take twice?
It was called the Master's Program. And it's run by a guy named Bob Schenk. And basically he took everything he could compile through all of the different MBA programs and everything he can compile through seminary, spiritual education. And he kind of combined like this 3-year program in pulling all of the things that he found most valuable in the study of theology and all the things he found most valuable in the study of business. And then it was basically just CEOs that got together. And we would get together for one day, once a quarter, and then we'd have all this kind of stuff we do in between. And so it's a 3-year program, and I was the young guy that was part of it. And all the other dudes were like, you know, half-time. They're all like insanely successful and wealthy. And I'm like, I wasn't even sure if I was a leader at that point. Like, I don't know why I'm here. And I remember going up to Bob and saying to him, I go, I don't really think I'm supposed to be here. I'm 20-something. These dudes are old. And he goes, well, then get the hell out of here. And I remember thinking, ooh, I like you. Nobody talks to me like that. That was nice. I'm sticking around. I mean, I think. So I went through his 3-year program. Then I brought one of his teachers into my office, and I had them go through it another 3 years. So that was the 2 times I went through that program. And so I've done different things like that, which I found to be quite valuable. Yes?
I have 2 short questions. One is what musical instrument you play when you travel with your band. And second, you said you read a lot of books. Can you name maybe 1 or maybe 2 books comes in your mind to suggest for reading? I want to read something next week, for example.
Yeah. So I don't play any musical instrument. My ex-wife wouldn't let me. She's like, no, you're not talented with that. You be the band manager, the executive producer, like you make stuff happen, knock down walls for us. So, I mean, I can kind of play the guitar. I can probably play the piano if I put a little effort into it. I mean, I don't sound terrible, but I don't sound great if I sing, so, you know, whatever. But I was married for almost 20 years. We're still really close, which I'm very thankful for. We share 2 boys, and we share a life together in many ways. So she was a singer-songwriter. So she wrote all the music. She was the piano player. And then she would do a lot of like dramatic kind of, you know, things, like put things together. And our music kind of sounded like Evanescence or Flyleaf. It was kind of like a heavy rock sound with kind of like a melodramatic female singer. And the other question that you asked me was on books. Okay, so Mark Benehoff wrote a book about the cloud. I've probably given more of those books away than anything. That's the founder of Salesforce. My friend Julie Winter wrote a book about mental health. I think I've probably the second most given away book. Julie Winter, and the book is called, I can't remember. The forward's done by Chris Valentin. That's a really interesting book on, she's a nurse, and a really interesting book on mental health and kind of navigating that. And most of the time, like if I really want to read something emotional, I'll read the Psalms out of the Bible. And if I want to read something like really wisdom-oriented, I'll read the Proverbs. That's changed over time, but those are kind of 4 things that stand out to me.
It sounds like you were in a relationship for like most of the time you're pursuing business.
Yeah.
Would you recommend being in a relationship, or do you feel like that could hinder you?
Oh, well, that's an interesting question. I'm not a relationship expert, so I don't have a recommendation. I have found that relationships and relationships for me and whatever it is that I'm doing with my time are not super connected. Meaning I can have a very healthy relationship no matter what I'm doing if I'm a healthy person. And I can have a very unhealthy relationship no matter what I'm doing if I'm an unhealthy person. One thing that I've never felt is that the health of my relationships are determined by the other person. I always take responsibility for the health of my relationship. And I would say that it's difficult to be with an entrepreneur. I would say that my wife, we met at 16 years old. She definitely did not anticipate being with a spouse that was going to take the actions I was going to take. And I do believe that my decision to continue to start companies over and over and over again was very difficult on her. And then the emotional strain that being an entrepreneur puts you through was difficult enough on me that I don't feel great about all the ways that I treated her. And I think that had a lot to do with our relationship deteriorating. And I'm grateful that we have a strong relationship today. Go ahead.
You mentioned you were an 8-time co-founder. Did you immediately jump to the next business opportunity right after the last one closed? And how did you balance staying focused on your current project while looking?
Yeah. I don't believe in balance. Yeah. I think balance is a strange pursuit. I believe in pursuing what is most important. So, like joy, happiness, laughter, connection, kindness, humility, that you pursue, no matter what you're doing. But to think you're going to be wildly successful and live a balanced life is not backed by science. You're never going to find athletes or businessmen or businesswomen. You're not going to find the world's most successful artists in any area that live super balanced lives. You're going to find people that basically put themselves into manic depressive environments, bipolar experiences, because they have to be so insanely maniac to accomplish the radical things they accomplish. And then that means they also have to constantly deal with depleting their serotonin, depleting their dopamine, depleting their endorphins, and then having to figure out how do they manage the melancholy and all the things that come through. And that's why if you look at like mental health things, and then you look at the description of entrepreneurs or the description of great artists or the description of great athletes, it's pretty much the same thing. And it's not that only artists and athletes and entrepreneurs deal with mental health. And it's not that all people that deal with mental health pursue those things. It's just it's pretty hard to be extraordinary in life unless you're going to put yourself in very difficult circumstances. When it comes to balance, I think saying no is super important. There was a TED Talk recently by Elon Musk's wife, I think, and her whole talk was about how he said no to everything. And every time he said no to something, he was saying yes to the main thing. So when he says no 1,000 times, he's really saying yes 1,000 times to the thing that matters most. Yeah, what's your name? Hey, nice to meet you.
You mentioned a real estate company that you started, and you also mentioned a digital content creator company. What's the name of that?
Yeah, the real estate company is U Realty, Yourealty. And basically that transformed into Kukui, KUKUI.com. And that's the one that was acquired by a private equity firm. So U Realty basically became something else. We pivoted. My content creation company is Attention Live, ATTN.live. I do suggest you write that down, ATTN.live. And the reason is, I think that the way that we have approached telling our story is kind of unique and probably worth taking a peek. I'm also going to write down my name. You guys are welcome to connect with me on social. I'm pretty much everywhere. But, you know, I'm only going to respond to you if you tell me why you reached out. Okay? So I will respond to all of you as long as you tell me exactly why you're reaching out. Like, I don't want to get coffee for no reason. I don't want to jump on Zoom with you because you had a good time listening to me talk. Tell me exactly what you want to connect with me, and I'll be happy to do so. I'm only going to take, I think the last 2 questions, unless anybody else is like pressed, because I got to run to the airport, catch a plane. And you? Is it 3? Okay, go ahead. You first. What's your name?
Batir,
Nice to meet you.
you
said you create business and the business wasn't ready to the market. Did you succeed with the business or did you give up?
Which one?
You said 3 of them wasn't ready to the market, and what happened with the business?
Trying to think. I think what I was talking about was Attention Live, where we made a minimal viable product. We tried to get people to use it, and they didn't want to use it because it was 3 inventions in one product. Then we built version 1, brought that to market through Clubhouse. People liked the idea, but they never really happened, and it was broken. So then I went back and we built version, I'll call it 0.2. And we brought that to enterprises instead of people. We started, and that's how we started making money. So we made about $650,000 in revenue at Attention Live after we built our version 0.2 and was bringing it to enterprise accounts using the product and doing services for them. And now we just finished, I'll call it version 0.3, which is ready for market, which we're going to go to market with in a moment. So that's been a super difficult experience because I expected our first iteration to be wildly successful. I was 100% sure our second was like no doubt. And now we're on third, and I feel the same way. I just never give up hope, apparently. Go ahead.
I know you mentioned that it was kind of hard to get people to understand your products. So how do you market your products for success?
I have a team. That's way better at marketing products than I am. And I wouldn't really say that we're that great at it. You know, when it comes to like product market fit, there's a couple things. One is like luck. Is the wind blowing in your sails or not? Another is one of the advantages of taking investment money is when you take investors' money, they have massive networks and they basically put you through these funnels that guarantee your success. So, yeah, it's tricky. It's a tricky situation, but I think there's enough information out there that kind of walk you through how to be successful that it's certainly, the science is there to try to figure it out. But I wouldn't say that I'm great. I'm like an artist that has a hard time telling the world about their product, to be honest with you. Was anybody else like super pressing? Go ahead.
With all the traveling that you do, and the team that you do have, do y'all have any like openings to anybody who's willing to travel and be a part of the team?
That's a good question. I travel for different things, you know? So when I'm doing events, there are times where like I'll bring 3, 6, 9 people, you know, from all over the place to come. When I do things local, like in San Francisco, if I spin up events again, then it's really easy to like kind of invite local people to participate. The issue with travel is like events don't even pay the speakers to come travel for the most part. Like 99% of speakers are not paid to travel. They pay their own plane ticket, their own hotel and all that. In fact, probably not the majority, but a large portion of speakers pay. They either are sponsoring the event. So the whole thing of traveling is tricky, to be honest with you. There are some unique communities that do kind of create opportunities for people to travel and like be compensated for it. But I don't have anything like right this very moment. Basically, like when I travel, I pretty much travel solo at this point. And then I bring in like locals. Like, so when I just went to Singapore, I had 5 people come meet me, right? When I went to Manila, instead of bringing like last year, there was like 30, 40 of us from America that went to Manila for the event that we launched, Philippine Blockchain Week. This year, it wasn't many that came. I was kind of solo. And again, like I sent myself there, or, you know, one of the companies that I represent and part of sent me there so that I could go on the stage and talk about what we're doing. So usually when you want to get paid to travel, you want to be somebody that's providing value to a corporation, and that corporation, either your own corporation or a partner or somebody, is saying it's worth paying for your plane ticket, paying for your time, paying for your hotel and your food for you to go because you're going to bring us enough value. Anything else pressing before I wrap, because I got to run? Go ahead.
If you're putting on your first event, just say like music related, how would you go about it?
Oh, today? Let's say it's a music-related event. I think today I would make a video, like short, 20 seconds, 60 seconds. Hey, party people, I want to do a concert. I'm thinking of doing it at Golden Gate Park, at the San Francisco Giants Stadium, or at the whatever, Pier 39. If I do an event, would you be interested in being a vendor, sponsor, etc.? Would you be interested in playing music? Would you be interested in coming? Hit the survey below. A, if you want to be a sponsor, vendor. B, if you want to be a presenter, musician. C, if you want to attend. And D, if no. So I'd take that video, I'd put that on every social media site, and I would put a 4-part survey like A, B, C, D. So before I planned anything, I'd figure out if there's an appetite for it. Then I would get my cell phone out and I just go top to bottom of my text messages, and I basically blast that to every single person I know and say like, hey, it'd mean the world to me if you just would fill this out. If you could share it, it'd really mean a lot. That's how I'd do it. So I'd create a video with a survey, and then I'd text message out to every single person. If I had time, then I'd go back and I would DM everybody in the platform that link, but I wouldn't have time for that. So it'd just be a matter of making the video, posting it everywhere, and then going on my text, and I would like get my computer out because I have iMessage attached to my computer, and I would just do a copy on a note, and I would just copy it, and I wouldn't say their name, and I wouldn't personalize it. I would just, simple. Mean the world to me if you check this out, and if you promote this and answer my question. And then you're going to have all kinds of people like, hey, dude, I hit A. I'm super down. I have this. I hit B. I want to play, right? So that's how I do it. Okay, let me wrap because we're at time and I have to run. So let me end with this. Everybody stand with me, please. So I'm not going to go into a long story, but my family has lived in the Bay Area for 250 years. My ancestor, Lieutenant Moraga, founded the Presidio in San Francisco in 1776, and he founded the city of San Jose, November 1777. So Moraga's, picture is still up on the wall in the San Jose city building. Our family has been entrepreneurs for 10 generations here, and so all I know is entrepreneurship. So I never really had a mindset of like getting a job or working for the government. And it's been fascinating to see California go through some of the strange situations, in San Francisco especially. And I will say, for those of you that live here, like things have been way worse, just so you know, in the last 250 years, and so much better, and they will turn at the tide good again. I came here to talk about business and stuff that I've learned over time, and I also kind of carry a family name being here. Some of you just came here for school or work in the last several years or decades. Some of you maybe have lived here for a couple of generations. But as I end the class, I just want to declare a blessing over all of you. May you be successful in everything you do in school and in your career. May you be diligent and wise and kind and loving and put other people first. Be humble. May those be the things that mark your life. And as Lieutenant Moraga has this incredible legacy over 250 years, may all of you have an amazing, significant legacy that your descendants will be proud of when they look back at your life 250 years from now. May you do things for your family and for your community that actually matter. And finally, if it means anything to you, as a person that represents a family that's been living on this land for 250 years, I welcome you here. May you feel like this is your home, and may you do great things in this community. And thank you so much for your attention today.